Howdy everyone, Jeff of Jeff's Game Blog again, coming at you from inside my apartment. It's a little too windy outside for me to attempt to shoot out on the balcony, but maybe you can hear me a little better this time. I showed you a big stack of game products in my last video blog and talked about a few of them. These are things that were sort of worming their way into my mind as I was coming up with some of the ideas for Broodmother Sky Fortress, the adventure I'm going to be doing for Lamentations of the Flame Princess Grand Adventure campaign, assuming it gets funded. So let's look at the rest of them real quick. Like, this is an old Judges Guild module called Under the Storm Giant's Castle. I've talked about this on my blog at least once before. It's a oddball little adventure where the dungeon is made of clouds. The clouds below the Storm Giant's Castle in the title. It's very goofy, it's very gonzo. One of the main foes that you encounter are these balloon men that pop when you poke them with a sharp implement, and Satan himself features as the boss monster of the adventure. Sorry, spoilers on a 30-year-old module there, but one thing I liked about this module is the concept of a dungeon in the sky where the ceilings, floors, and walls are made of some sort of magical cloud stuff. The thing I really didn't like about it when I first read it is like, what, no map for the Storm Giant's castle at all? What if the PCs decide, you know what, we're not going to take their stupid mission, we're just going to sneak around their castle and try to loot their treasury? That option is not available, but, it's a very short module, so what can you do? Now here's a classic, old Tomb of Horrors from Uncle Gary. One of the things I like about this is the very simple logic of much of it. You do X, you live, you do Y, you're dead. It's very, very brutal, and it has a well-deserved reputation for killing the bejesus out of parties. One of the things I don't like about it is that it's mostly in the form of, oh, a wizard did it. So it's very hard to read some of those situations your PCs find themselves in. You just have to learn via body count. Oh, well, it killed Tom's first character. If we did X, let's try Y with his second character, or, sending in a bunch of NPCs or whatever. I'd like to try achieving the same level of brutal logic with some traps that can be read by the players the first time they encounter them. So there'd be maybe a little bit more naturalistic type traps, like, a crack in the floor of the cloud. Well, what's going to happen if you, walk across that room? You might fall all the way through the cloud to God knows how far below. Simple things like that maybe don't have the gonzo appeal of a Tomb of Horrors, but I feel like for a Lamentations adventure where weirdness really comes on a budget, I think, if I'm reading Raggy's Referee's book properly, you don't need to attempt to kill the PCs every time with something supernatural. Some natural hazards will do the job just as well. And similarly, I've got here, the bulk of this stack is a bunch of Grim-Toothed traps. Now, if you've never seen one of these, you got to check one out if you can find one. They're books chock full of traps designed mainly for one goal, just murdering the bejesus out of the PCs. And the book basically serves as a shield for the Game Master. Look, I didn't kill you. This very well detailed trap on page 27 of this sicko's book of traps is what killed you. Sorry. And while I don't think as dungeon masters, grown-ups need that sort of shield, the basic concept is similar to Tomb of Horrors. There's a cause and effect that makes perfect sense to pretty much all the traps Grimtooth ever published. The problem again being that there's a wizard did it logic, or some very ridiculous dungeon architecture. Some of these traps, the engineering involved is just preposterous, at least in my opinion. So again, I like the basic concept of zap, you're dead, but here's why. But I think the but here's why has the same sort of fundamental flaw as it does in Tomb of Horrors. Still fun things to read through, though, and great little cartoony illustrations. Here's an oddball one that I think gets not enough recognition in the hobby as being a good book. Mechton Empire. This is obviously a sci-fi giant robot thing, so you know we're far afield now. But this was done by Guy McLinmore and his partner Greg Polane. I'm probably butchering that name. They also did good work with Fossa in Star Trek and Doctor Who. But I tell you what, there's a section in here that I absolutely adore. This is basically a science fiction space opera galaxy spanning source book for 2nd edition Mechton, and one chapter near the back is called Mysteries of the Galaxy, and it's just one of the most brilliant ways of presenting hard setting information I've ever found, because although there's detail, the setting information isn't hard in the usual sense of, oh, here's the canonical facts of the campaign. Rather, each of these mysteries of the galaxy, they give you a breakdown. Here are some possible solutions, like, you know, what's the deal with this alien species, or what happened to the ancient precursor race that left all these artifacts laying around the galaxy. Instead of providing you with the answer, here's a list of 5 possible answers and a blank for you to fill in your own, so that no 2 Mechton game masters could possibly run this book the same way. And it has a high degree of replayability, because you could run a second Mechton Empire campaign with a second group of players, and you've got all these wonderful plot points that are really just in sort of a quantum flux state until you decide what the answers are going to be and follow those consequences through in your campaign. And I'm going to combine that idea with some random chartery to try and provide some replayability for the module. And just, I firmly believe that the author of the book, any game book, it's not their job to nail down the final say on anything. That's the game master's job. And but that doesn't mean the author needs to leave the game masters at sea with no help. So I want to provide some additional tools for the individual game master to nail down their own ideas. And so part of Broodmother Sky Fortress is sort of, I don't know if you want to call it a tutorial, because, you know, this isn't necessarily going to be a beginner module, but it's basically a walkthrough. How can we make good decisions to fit this module into individual campaigns? I think I talked about this a bit in my previous blog, where I held up against the giants and noted there wasn't a lot of context in those. And Mechton Empire provides one great template for answering key questions about how something fits with what's going to actually happen at your table. I think that's all for today. You all take care now.